this is an interesting piece of news. Glad we got the mandatory John Cena thing out of the way. Yeah,
John Cena.
I'm glad we got that out of the way.
Can't see him.
All right, guys. Well, it looks like James Gunn has announced that John Cena's Peacemaker from Suicide Squad is getting a straight-to-series from HBO Max. This is an interesting piece of information. I hope that they're not jumping the gun.
Two ends.
I hope they're not getting too ahead of themselves here. I'm excited for this. I'm skeptical about it. I have my hopes. I put out a post on the community page for The Real Reach asking them what are their hopes for it, waiting for some more comments to come in, and then we'll read through some of them. Right now, let's break down this piece of news. So James Gunn, he tweeted out, "I'm over the moon, excited to be working on #Peacemaker with my pals John Cena and the Suicide Squad producer Peter Safran on this new HBO Max original series." John Cena said, "Working alongside James Gunn on Suicide Squad was an absolute masterclass in how to best bring beloved characters to life in a new and fun way. I cannot wait for the DC Universe to experience more of absurdity that is Peacemaker in this new project on HBO Max."
Ooh, look out.
So James Gunn will write all 8 episodes of this show, and he's going to direct multiple episodes here. Peacemaker is a pacifist, such an extreme one to the point that if you're getting in the middle of peace, he'll go to war with you.
Yeah.
He's an interesting fellow, this guy.
I think the first comics tagline is a man who loved peace so much he's willing to fight for it.
Yeah. With John Cena playing this character, I'm excited to see what he does with it. Now, I do have some anticipation feelings and thoughts for this show. I'm very hopeful that they're going to make this a hard R series. I imagine they will. I've heard reports that the Suicide Squad film will be, in fact, a pretty hard R with what, the DC Universe has done with their television shows such as Doom Patrol and Harley Quinn, 2 shows that I absolutely love. Still haven't seen Titans yet, but as far as Doom Patrol, Harley Quinn go, which are both on HBO Max right now. So if you have HBO Max, if you haven't seen them, highly recommend them. They are both hard R, weird in all their own ways, and knowing that James Gunn is behind this and will be writing it, and knowing how much character exploration he loves to do and how great he can do that within an ensemble piece with comic book characters, I can only imagine what he can bring to life here with an actual television show, an 8-episode series. My skepticism is in the idea that this is straight to series. I feel like a lot of people are excited to see what he'll do with it, and I think comics fans will be very excited for Peacemaker to have his own series. At the same time, though, I'm like, well, I'm kind of under the impression we should maybe wait to see what fan reception is like.
Fan reception of the Suicide Squad and John Cena's presence in it before, buying 8 episodes and spending all this money.
Yeah, I have faith in the fact that James Gunn is behind it himself.
Yeah.
And John Cena, I think, is a really funny actor. Whenever he's tried being like serious badass, I just don't buy into it. But I think he's more self-aware of the goofiness that he naturally brings, even when he's trying to be all smoldering and serious.
Yeah, he can do the ironic badass very well. Or the badass who thinks he's smarter than he is, or something like that, yeah.
I imagine this will also have, it would be kind of odd if it doesn't have like political messages and undertones throughout. He's Peacemaker, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
It's James Gunn behind it. You got to imagine that it's going to be infused.
Yeah, I would hope so. I mean, from James Gunn, I usually tend to expect a certain level of irreverence and a certain level of zaniness that's kind of off the beaten path for the norm, but that's the one thing I guess I would very much hope for on a show like this. And not that it needs to be Watchmen, but I feel like in a fun way it could do its own riff on, a Captain America type thing, or just the irony of the world in general having so much war and the struggle to maintain peace and having such a violent character in those pursuits. There's a lot you could say with that.
And I'm also wondering too, what's the tagline for the Suicide Squad movie? Don't get attached.
Yeah.
A lot of people were actually under the impression that John Cena would be one of the ones to get offed in the Suicide Squad. So if anything, the bummer piece of information about this news sounds like they're confirming that he's not one of the characters who will ultimately get offed in the movie. But Maybe.
He could
Maybe
be a
still
prequel.
does. This could be a prequel series, an origin tale. We don't know any of the specifics of what they're going to do. I'm hoping that they can get some other DC characters to really get involved in here, maybe some other members of the Suicide Squad. I really like the approach of what DC generally has been doing with their adult television shows, what they've been doing with expanding upon their movies now. I mean, we got that Gotham show coming out with Matt Reeves helping to get that off the ground. And then we got James Gunn working on this one that are very interconnected to the movies to help expand upon the lore and flesh out more of the world from its movie cinematic universes. And I know Marvel is doing their same thing with like shows like WandaVision, Loki, Falcon and Winter Soldier, whatnot, perhaps even more down the road. The fact that they're making this a big part of their plan right now, that must mean that whatever they've seen of the Suicide Squad and what they've seen of what John Cena does, I'm now wondering if he's going to be the character in the movie who steals the show whenever he's on screen.
I could totally see it.
He has to. At this point, he kind of has to.
Yeah.
Like there's more of a pressure now for fan reception on his end, because you're announcing the series, you're going to want people to walk away from that movie loving whatever the hell it is that James Gunn and John Cena are doing. You know, if you walk away like, I loved everyone else and John Cena was all right, that's kind of a bummer, you know?
Yeah.
But this could also be an opportunity to whomever else survives, assuming this is a continuation and not a prequel, whoever else survives in the Suicide Squad, maybe will get an opportunity to make an appearance in here as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think it definitely suggests at least that they must find something especially special in his portrayal, because that is a stacked cast and there are a bunch of people who could easily go on to their own spin-off show. And it's cool to watch this because it seems like there is definitely a big shift happening in terms of how these TV shows or, pseudo TV shows are made, because now they're going even further down the hole of hiring, movie caliber talent. Not to slag anybody who makes TV because it's just a different medium, but it seems like Marvel and DC more and more aren't making what you would assume when you hear like, oh yeah, they're making a TV show. I tend to think of the CW when I think of that.
Right.
And so this seems like a definite mark toward both bigger caliber TV and bigger caliber crossovers between the TV and the movies.
Right now we got Hector G, who's a top comment, who's saying there's so many other characters that deserve an HBO Max series, but it's James Gunn and John Cena that will draw in people and not the character itself. Don't care for it. And that's what I mean of how
Fair
there's
point.
a lot of pressure riding in on John Cena's portrayal in the actual movie itself. Because right now I can imagine that the only thing that's really having people interested, I'm talking about general audiences, people who have no familiarity with Peacemaker. It's like when you announce the shows from Marvel, it's like, well, we've at least gotten a chance to be acquainted with characters like Wanda and Vision and Falcon and Winter Soldier. We've gotten a chance to be acquainted with them. Here, all we've gotten are some like behind the scenes snippets. So this whole announcement, the enthusiasm for it is strictly riding on your love or appreciation for both John Cena and James Gunn.
Yeah.
But a lot of my faith in it is also going to the fact that it's on HBO Max itself. It sounds like whatever DC Universe was trying to become, HBO Max is just taking over for it.
Seems like HBO Max is yet to reach the point where they're like Netflix, so it's still special when they greenlight a show.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see here. Nabil Syed said, I hope it's full-on adult comedy series like Harley Quinn. I'm hoping for that too. Like Doom Patrol is a very twisted and hilarious series, but it's also very heavy and dark at times. And Harley Quinn is 100% a comedy show that occasionally has moments of real nuance and emotional depth. I imagine that for this one to work, it would be great to get a live action DC series that is in continuity with the other DC movies, that is just a complete comedy. And with knowing these two involved, I think it's going to be a full-on comedy.
Oh, yeah. Knowing James Gunn especially. I mean, it's going to be probably a little gross, very funny, and probably ride the edginess line as far as it can.
And then Colin Davis says something interesting. John, you want to read it?
Yeah, sure. He says, at this point, after Guardians of the Galaxy 3, Volume 3 is done, DC needs to hand the reins to the DCEU to James Gunn. Single-handedly can get me excited about any character. Which, I mean, I can imagine a lot of people getting on board with you. I mean, I think it's funny because it does depend on whether or not the Suicide Squad actually pleases everybody as much as the hype is pleasing everybody. But I could definitely see them handing the reins to him if this all goes well. I mean, it seems like they definitely have some faith in him. I don't know exactly how that clashes or meshes with their continued commitment, it seems like, to trusting their creatives with this stuff and not going quite as committee, but maybe having a guy like him heading up whatever pseudo committee they come up with could be a good thing, because he's clearly intimately knowledgeable of the comics, passionate about them, and he clearly has a sensibility that appeals to everybody right now.
Well, it's interesting with James Gunn, because when he got the Suicide Squad, that was when he was let go of Disney and Marvel. And then so it was more there's a lot of speculation is is this a big FU to Marvel, blah blah blah. And then he, in the middle of production, or I was either pre-production or actual during production, then they hired him back for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. If he's going to be working on this series and then also working on Guardians of the Galaxy 3, he is the only filmmaker from both from the MCU and the DCEU who will continuously be hopping back and forth between the two major comic book franchises. Dang. I don't think they would hand it over to him, but I'm excited that it's going to be an ongoing, continuing relationship with James Gunn for both of MCU and DCEU. That's the part of it that sounds really intriguing. And also what I'm hoping for, because I know Dave Bautista expressed interest in being in the Suicide Squad. Obviously didn't happen. I'm hoping that with Dave Bautista's real reverent love for James Gunn, that he gets an opportunity to be in here, and I think fans would be very excited about that. If you could have Dave Bautista playing some type of character going toe-to-toe with John Cena, I think it would be very exciting for a lot of fans.
Yeah, that's a Civil War level mashup of a whole different variety.
That way in the DCU you would have Dave Bautista, John Cena, and Dwayne Johnson as Black Adam, and I know Dwayne Johnson and Dave Bautista have some weird riff going on. So I don't know what the hell's exactly happening there, but they've been having some qualms. So I think that would make things very exciting. Here's getting this fighting wrestling world all thrown into the DCU.
Pretty soon, it's just going to go back to being wrestling, but with all of them dressed as different superhero characters or super villains.
All right, guys. Well, are you excited for the show at all? Leave your thoughts down below. What are your hopes, anticipations for what they do with this series? Looking forward to hearing what you got to say. Subscribe to The Real Rejects. Click that notification bell. Last but not least, let's do a There's one man at our Patreon page who is a man who seeks to make peace in the world. It is undoubtedly Chris Wamoff.
It is.
Chris Wamoff is a hardcore political activist, humanist. He really cares about each individual person. I know this started off like I was going to say something sarcastic, linking it towards the irony that is Peacemaker, but if there's someone who really cares about making peace in the world, it is Chris Wamoff. Chris, I'm happy to know you. I hope things are consistently going well. I know it's been a while since I heard back from you, but my dude, you're someone who, whenever I talk to you, brings a lot of positive light into my heart. I love getting to know you the more and more I do, so please be safe out there, and I hope to hear back from you soon, buddy.